what are some common mistakes you've seen with startups? And we'll get some advice from you also on what you think startup founders should focus on, because it's not just about the idea. Like you've told me, it's not just about having that cool idea.
I think now these days, if you open Twitter or maybe even LinkedIn, you have so much gyan on startups that I think I don't even need to say anything because everyone can just read. Everyone's giving gyan on startups. But the mistakes, or I would say, I think the difference between, you mentioned the failures and the successes. The one thing I saw, and I worked with very successful startup founders who built multi-billion dollar businesses and very well-known names. And I think at least in the initial phase, the successful ones stood out because they were the ones building for their users, buyers, consumers, whatever you call them, versus many others who were building to raise funding. So there were a lot who would just focus on building a startup or a business which would look attractive for a VC to invest in. Whereas the really successful ones were the ones who built first to attract users. I know most people will say, but that, they're both the same, right? If you have users, you'll get VCs, but it doesn't work like that. I think I've seen a lot of people first focus on making sure that they have the right deck that will attract a VC, etc., rather than, it's tougher, but I would say build out first, get real users or buyers or consumers, have them validate the business, and then you don't need to validate to an investor, right? Validation for a business should not come from an investor only. It has to first come from the user. Yes, maybe at an idea stage, if you're getting kind of angel investors, seed investors, yeah, fine. You discuss with them, they believe in your idea, they will give you that capital to start out. But then after that, you have to have enough critical mass of users, which depends on the sector. Obviously, in some sectors, a few hundred users might be good enough to, proceed. In some, you need thousands, right? And I think if you parse out all the successful startups in the last 10 years, you look at them, they would have raised capital, their first institutional round of capital, much longer or further down in their journey than the unsuccessful ones. We all know the very large startups which raised a large amount of money and then crashed and burned, right? Because when it was time to get the consumers buy-in or the users buy-in, that's where they stumbled. They all had shiny decks, PPTs, but I don't think that works. I think so. Yeah, I think focus on the consumer. I think that's all. And that's not even an advice, that everyone knows that. Maybe also just stay away from all the startup media for a while because there's so much noise. You have to zone in on your business, your users, your competitors, and that's it. And for a while, just stay on that.